everybody, and welcome back to Pandora's Box. Today we're looking at episode 3 of my little docu-series on addiction and my experiences of it. If you haven't seen the other videos, you can check out the links in the description below. There's one to episode 1, one to episode 2, and hopefully up there is a little box that's going to lead you to the whole playlist. So yeah, definitely check those out. And so today we're going to talk about the event of my life that probably had the single greatest impact on me, and how I ended up where I was, and becoming what I became. And I mean, this is not trying to shirk responsibility. Obviously, it's a choice at the start. Everything is a choice. But choices can be made very difficult depending on the circumstances of the situation. So, all right, let's go. So, as I mentioned, when I was 14, had that experience and changed how I looked at life. And after I started smoking pot, and I started not dropping out of school. I didn't drop out of school until grade 12, but when I started skipping school, I would drive into town, and one of these times I met a girl, and we ended up getting together and becoming partners, and things were good. I go to see her every day that I had the car. Eventually, I had a job. I was working full time. I moved into an apartment of my own. We moved in together, and on Friday, May 21st, 1999, at 5:52 p.m., my son, Michael Edward Purdy, was born. 9 pounds, 2.5 ounces. It's big, but it's beautiful. And while every one of my children being born was a miracle, the first hits you in a way that you can prepare for it. You can watch things, pregnancies, deliveries on TV or on YouTube, or hear from friends, family, but man, watching that life come into this world, there, it is the single most beautiful experience of my life, and I got to do it 4 times. But we're talking about Michael. So Michael was born, and everything was good. Very healthy boy. He was growing fast. I was working. Things were going well. So after a little while, young parents, we wanted to have some time off for ourselves. So we planned to have my eldest sister babysit our son for the night. It was Saturday, October 15th, 1999. I had to work until 2 a.m., but we had an apartment nearby, and we were going to host a party. We were known for our parties then, back before we had our son. So we planned a party, and I went to work, and everything was great. I kissed my son goodbye, kissed my partner goodbye, and I went to work. And I didn't notice when the owner, my boss, manager, the woman I was working with, how she had disappeared for quite a length of time. I didn't even notice it. And I remember, there's a lot of things I remember very vividly. And one of them is it being shortly after midnight on Sunday, October 16th, 1999. And my parents, who should not have been up on a Saturday night at this time, came walking through the front doors of the restaurant. And my mom was, you could tell she was fighting, every bone in her body was fighting not to cry. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. And so I asked, "What's wrong?" And my mom said, "Michael." And I don't remember how long it took me to drop my things and go, but we went really fast. So I got in the car with them, and we drove to our apartment, and we get there, and it's chaos. It's a 17, 16, and 18-year-olds partying, drinking, music's loud, and I go inside, and I can't find my partner. And I find her best friend, and I ask her where she's at, and she tells me. And then I grab her by the shoulders, and I said, listen, I said, you have to take care of this party. I have to take Roz. Something's happened to Michael. So you have to get all these people out of here. And I left her there. And I went to the back room, little den area. And Roz was sitting on a couch with some friends, and they were drinking. And I went and I said, Roz, we gotta go. Something's wrong with Michael. And sober up, I've never seen anyone sober up so fast. Sorry, I'm trying to speak. I'll try to speak a little louder. So we left. We got in the car, and we had no idea what was going on. All we knew was that we were going to the hospital, and something was wrong with our son. So we get to the emergency room, and now in 18 years I've been in the hospital quite a few times, but I've never been ushered back into where the ambulance bay was as soon as I got there. And we got there, and her mother was there, and her aunt was there, and my parents were there. And my oldest sister was there. And our priest from our local pastor was there. And then a doctor came out. And he asked for the mother. And when he told her that our son had passed away, she hit the floor. Just hit the floor crying. We had to help her up and sit her in a wheelchair. I don't know how long she cried for before she just stopped. And I've seen a lot of bad things. Done a lot of bad things. Heard a lot of bad things. Things that break your heart. But in all my life, I've never in my life heard words that broke my heart more. It broke it more than I thought it possibly could at that moment. My partner, who is completely atheist, no religious upbringing, no belief in God whatsoever, suddenly stops crying. And she looks up at my pastor, and she says to him, is Michael going to hell because I don't believe in God? I'll never forget that. For as long as I live, that memory is burned into the back of my skull. There's a lot of things that are hazy in my life that I've forgotten over time, but that one. I've never been so sad in my entire life than I was right then. It broke my heart. It broke the heart of everyone in that room. And I don't think there was a single person who didn't want to pick her up and squeeze her and make it all go away. But there isn't a making this go away. And then we had to go inside. Inside the room where No, they don't look the same, even when it's not been long. They don't. You go to a funeral and you see people and they don't really, something seems a little off. It's not just the preparation of a body for viewing. They just don't look right. And it just ain't right. And I don't wish it upon anybody. Not Jeremy, not Alex, not any one of these assholes out there. Nobody's ever wronged me. Never would I wish that on them. And I can still see his purple lips. His eyes were closed. That wasn't even goodbye yet. That wasn't even goodbye yet. There was still more to do. I don't really remember a lot after. I don't remember very much after, from the point of just kissing him on his forehead. I don't remember driving home. I do remember not being able to cry. And it wasn't because I was sad. Or it wasn't sad, I was broken. It was because my partner was too broken. My sister, who blamed herself, even though it was outside of her control. It was just too many people I felt I needed to be strong for, and so I didn't get to cry for a little while. But when I did, oh boy did I ever. Boy did I ever. Like I said, a lot of it's hazy after that. I know that my parents they'd taken out insurance, life insurance on him. And unfortunately, there had been a stipulation that if anything happened to him before he was 6 months of age, we would only be eligible to a percentage of that, which we did get. And we used to cover the cost of the casket, the funeral, and other arrangements. And I remember the one thing that she wanted specifically was his picture on the headstone. And there are many places to get them around here. And I remember they wanted to charge us almost all of what we had. And my dad, my father, I love my father. I love my parents. I wouldn't have got through it without him. And I wouldn't be here without him. But he told us all to go. He said, let's go. So we left and we got in the car and he said, I'll be right back. I don't remember how long he was in there. I don't know what he said. But when he came out, the headstone was significantly reduced in cost. And she got what she wanted. And I'll show a picture of that at the end. And then we had to deal with a funeral. I was an altar boy. I've been to over 100 funerals in my life. Barely knew any of them. Went to a few family members that I knew very well, my grandfather. But there isn't anything quite like having to put your own child in the ground. I don't remember the actual funeral. I don't remember the ride to the cemetery. But I remember we had to walk to get to the plot. And I remember standing there, and I was frozen. I couldn't walk. I didn't want to walk. And my mom came over. She gave me a big hug and she told me that I have to walk. And it'll be the hardest walk that I'll ever have to make. But I have to do it because everybody needs me to bring them, to let them know it's time. So I walked, and we laid him to rest. I buried more than my son that day. I buried a part of who I am, or was. We did find out that he had passed away from crib death, sudden infant death syndrome, which makes it all harder because there's no answer, there's no definitive conclusion as to why this happened. And I think that makes it what so impossible to ever really get over something like this, is you don't ever get closure. And I think there are certain people who have experienced losses in different ways that maybe can relate to that feeling. And yeah, so after all that, and things had settled. I mean, obviously I was not well. I pretended to be not well, but well enough, and I didn't go get help. I didn't see a therapist. I didn't talk to anyone. I was just the rock for other people after that. And that took its own toll over time, but and I think after that, I was empty in so many ways. And while it broke me in all the ways you might imagine it broke me in another way too. Because if you've watched the other videos through, you might remember that when I was young, the only thing my goal in life, partner I love, child, children, home, and not having to worry about money. I had that. 18 years old. 18 years old, and I had everything that I ever wanted out of life. And in a breath, it was all gone. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I mean, what do you do when you've already done what you wanted to do and it's gone? I mean, the one thing only ever wanted. And it's gone. And there's nothing you can do about it, not a goddamn thing. It should be no surprise how something like this can have a serious and long-lasting effect on someone. And I don't say that because I feel like I'm a victim of something. If anything, I'm a victim of my own choices. But there's things that happen in life that are beyond your control. And a lot of them you're never going to see coming. And they're going to make or break you. And this one broke me. And I still haven't picked up all the pieces. But I'm getting there. And I'm happy today. Because I have what I lost again. I have 3 beautiful children that there isn't anything in the world I wouldn't do for them. I would lay my life down in a second. I would go whatever it took to keep my children safe. And if you can't understand that, and you want to continue mocking me about my kids, then really, you're a horrible human being. And I have my wife. Well, yeah, she's my wife. And she's the greatest partner I could have ever dreamed of. She loves me, she respects me, she understands me. She's patient, she's caring. She don't put up with my shit. And while I am extremely happy, without a doubt, there's still pieces that are broken. But every time that I talk about it, every time that I stumble, I get to add a little glue and fix a little piece of me, and I'm lucky enough to have someone by my side to help find the pieces that I can. And to anyone else out there who's had to go through this and endure this, it never stops hurting. You never forget. The pain is always there. It just gets a little number every day. But you'll never forget. So, after this, I didn't jump straight into being an addict, but this was definitely the beginning. And so, moving forward in the next episode in the series, I'm going to talk. I'm more going to be like sharing stories, I guess, but just talk about my early to mid-20s, which was, to me, up until I started actually making these videos, I never considered myself an addict during that time. I considered it like a preamble to my addiction. But as I've been, reflecting and looking back, preparing for making some of these videos, I've realized that I was full-blown into addiction long before I ever picked up crack cocaine, which ended up being my drug of choice. But we'll get to that. There's still a lot to cover, still a lot to deal with. I want to thank you all for joining me and sitting through this with me. Sure wasn't necessarily easy for some. I'm sure some are laughing. That's all right. And I hope that maybe at least one person hears this and has a little bit of hope that they too can go on, because you can. You have to. You have to. If not for yourself, for them, I mean. They're gone, you're not. And if you could have an adult conversation with them, and how I've imagined these so many times, I know that no parent, no child would say to their parent to give up. They would want us all to keep going. So keep going. Keep going, even if it's just staying in bed awake all day. And that's it. That's all you can do today. Do that. You'll get there. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by the channel today and watching. I prepared a little memoriam video of the few pictures that we actually have of my son. We didn't have smartphones back then, and unfortunately, most of the films that we had with pictures of him was either ruined or lost. So thank you for joining me, and look forward to seeing you next time on Pandora's Box.